Let's take a look at some political highlights from Wales this week. The First Minister says she doesn't believe Wales could be independent. Helen Vychan MS and Delyth Jewel MS both expressed frustration that London Labour just aren't listening. Let's start with a clip that has been widely shared this week of Eluned Morgan talking to the Newsagents podcast about whether Wales could be independent, and the response to that clip by Plaid leader Rhun ap Iorwerth.
Wales could be independent. Could it manage alone in the world?
I don't think it could, no.
You don't think Wales could be independent?
Well, you could be independent, but you'd be extremely poor, and you couldn't, you could not rely on having the kind of pension you have today, having the kind of health service.
Wales isn't strong enough and big enough to look after itself in the world. It needs the English.
Economically, not yet.
The answer is an obvious yes, and surely it's a question to which every First Minister should answer yes. How can any First Minister not believe in their nation's potential? Now, the last First Minister but one, now Secretary for Finance, agreed it was perfectly viable for Wales to be independent. He just didn't think it was desirable, and I beg to differ with him on that. But how disheartening and yet sadly predictable it was when the current First Minister was asked the question on the Newsagents podcast, could Wales manage? And it was a no. Wales would be extremely poor, she said. But of course, Wales isn't somehow inevitably poor. Remember that our current position is a direct result of our place within the UK. Breaking out of those cycles of economic stagnation, of too many families living in poverty, is pretty difficult when successive Westminster governments fail to address the issue of fair funding, underfund transport, as they did again recently with rail, denies the powers over our natural resources, and so on. It seems that under Labour, as with the Conservatives, Westminster's answer to Wales is always no.
I think it's quite sad, actually, to hear the current First Minister say she doesn't believe an independent Wales could manage in the world. And it sounded very much to me like talking Wales down, especially when it was only last year that the Commission on the Constitutional Future of Wales reported back to the Welsh Government. They'd been commissioned to do the work by them to set out options for Wales's future. And it stated very clearly that independence was a viable option for Wales. And the Labour First Minister at the time, Mark Drakeford, accepted the report's findings. There's also a growing frustration that despite Labour's claims that having a Labour government in London and Cardiff would be beneficial for Wales, that nothing is actually happening, and they're failing miserably to be heard by Keir Starmer. Let's listen to Helen Vychan MS in the Chamber this week, and a similar frustration was heard from Delyth Jewel MS on the BBC's Politics Wales programme as well.
Things that Plaid Cymru would like to see prioritised for the 2026 budget. I think we do still need to make the case quite clearly in terms of what the shortcomings are in terms of the spending review and the budget set by Westminster to date. Fair funding for Wales. We have rehearsed that argument many times. Many of us seem united, but nothing is changing. The HS2 consequential, the devolution of the Crown Estate's control over our natural resources. Too many things are still being denied, which means that the levers that we have as a Senedd and the Welsh Government have are still limited. I was pleased to see the reference from the Chair of the Finance Committee in terms of those additional levers that we should have. That has to be a given. And what I would like to know in the Cabinet Secretary's response is, has there been a timetable set for some of these changes? Because we hear time and time again, partnership in power, things are changing. Well, the Secretary of State for Wales said recently that she wasn't aware about the shortfall caused by the national insurance contribution. So surely we need to see movement, and we need to see the Secretary of State for Wales actually standing up for Wales and also understanding some of the things that are proving really challenging here in Wales now.
That the Labour Party has spent the past year losing its way. We have failed to see the billions that we are owed from HS2. They have failed to stick up for Wales. I mean, they've even ignored the Welsh Government when it comes to an impact assessment on these cruel welfare cuts. I think time and again, Wales in our interests, we've been sidelined by Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves. And Eluned Morgan, I'm afraid, has failed to be heard. She has raised her voice and not been heard. She has capitulated time and again. We need a party that will have the ability and the ambition to stand up for Wales's corner, and that's why we need a new First Minister, and Rhun ap Iorwerth, to take that seat after next year's election.
Well, it might happen, mightn't it? Kevin?
Yeah,
what do you think?
Everything's to play for.
So there's some highlights from the Senedd this week. Growing frustration with Labour's lack of ambition for Wales.